they did not want to deal with any potential added drama that could cause.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one on Woburn Street.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to start letting some of the people in from the public just.
Yep. I think I'll go ahead and mute myself.
We'll just wait a couple minutes for John. So Andrew, really quick, do I need to make someone a host to enable them to screen share?
Not for this meeting, no.
Are you sure? Because I changed it to only hosts can screen share.
Yes, then you would.
Okay.
Or we can just turn that option off.
Okay. I wish they had like an interim solution so that it wouldn't be like all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I'll turn that option off then.
I do think there's a way when you create the meeting, you can enter emails, but they have to individually be Zoom Prime account holders or whatever as well. So it's not best.
Okay, maybe I'll just ask really quick, the people here from Weston and Sampson. Typically we have applicants screen share, but we've been trying to figure out like solutions for not allowing like Zoom bombing at the same time. So do you think you'll be screen sharing tonight, or would you prefer for staff to screen share your plans?
I think you could screen share, but we probably have some additional photos of similar pump stations that we'll want to screen share too. So Cassandra Albrecht will be doing all the screen sharing.
Okay, I'm just going to change the setting then back to all participants, because it is easier actually for us if applicants screen share, explain, and then you can use your mouse to show things, and
True.
We'll just do that and hope for the best. All right, just waiting a couple more minutes for the chair of the commission to show up. All right, here he is.
Sorry about the delay. Some technical difficulties this evening. Julie, are we good? Do we have a quorum?
Yes, you have everybody here except for Nick, and he can't attend tonight.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know, but you're awfully quiet, at least for me, and we can't see you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll work on that.
Okay.
We'll call this meeting a CPDC to order. And first item, Julie, if you can go over the ground rules for Zoom. Thank you.
Great. Welcome everybody to tonight's CPDC meeting. It's Monday, June 14th. Here from staff, we have me, Julie Mercier, Community Development Director, Andrew McNichol, Staff Planner, and Ryan Percival, Town Engineer. From the CPDC, we have John Weston, who's the Chair. We have Pam Adrian, Vice Chair, Heather Klisch, Tony Direzzo, and I'm forgetting somebody, Linda Harrison, sorry. So the way these meetings typically operate is that the commission will hear a presentation from the development team, and then there'll be a dialogue between the commission and the project team. And then the commission will open this up to public hearing. And if you'd like to make a comment during the public comment section, please raise your hand like this or use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And when you're acknowledged, state your name and address for the record, and then you can make your comment. And then please do remain muted at all times unless you're the speaker, so that we can all hear the person who's speaking clearly. And then one last thing about Zoom is we do ask you to refrain from using the chat. This is an open meeting and we don't want to run afoul of the open meeting law. So thank you very much. Turn it back to you, John.
Thank you, Julie. So I guess the first item, I just want to make sure that that folks are aware that this meeting was not officially posted as it was, as we typically do and as required. Most of the notices, or I should say all of the notices that we typically send out to abutters, material went up on the website. It was the official posting that did not go up, providing adequate notice. That being said, the two items that we are going to hear tonight are both projects sponsored by the town, which officially doesn't need to go through the site plan process. And so from a so this is more of a, I'm going to call it more of a courtesy to the town as opposed to a solid requirement. So so that's why we decided to move ahead with these two projects tonight, even though all the posting wasn't done wasn't all up to par. And so with that notification, the first item that we are going to hear tonight is a public hearing for a site plan review at 160 Hopkins Street, the Gazebo Circle Pump Station. And I think this, right, this is all Ryan. You want to take it away?
This is all me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the project. It's actually a really exciting project, I think, for the area and for particularly the Gazebo Circle condos. For those who are not familiar, the Gazebo Circle condos they have low pressure issues, domestic and for fire flow reasons. And so the town sponsored a article at town meeting to correct this deficiency in flows and pressure. And so we just happen to have a town-owned parcel right next door, and we actually happen to have issues in the surrounding South Street area up into the Kenneth Road area. So this lent itself to really a great opportunity for the town, have multiple benefits to have a booster station placed on site that would provide adequate domestic flows and fire flows to the Gazebo Circle area and the surrounding neighborhood with some valving off of some areas in that distribution system. That being said, when we went through the process, hydraulic process, and then also through just looking at the area, we found that there was an adequate electrical capacity there. So we spoke with RMLD, and RMLD actually needed redundancy for a 3-phase. And so RMLD is looping 3-phase through that area and a secondary feed to Gazebo Circle as we speak, which will also provide the town the ability to run VFDs, variable frequency drive pumps, which is energy savings for the town. They work more efficiently. And so with that brief summary, I think I will turn it over to someone from Weston and Sampson. There's Bruce Adams, Ben Rollins, and Cassandra Albrecht. I think Cassandra's gonna man the controls there. So if you want to put up one of the plans or maybe start with a site plan, that'd be great. And then I will let one of you two or one of you three take over.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Bruce Adams with Weston and Sampson. And here with Ben Rollins and Cassandra Albrecht, we're the designers of the pump station. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, Cassandra will be sharing content. So the pump station, as Ryan mentioned, is on a site that borders Hopkins Street as well as Cedar Street off of Bear Hill Road. Access to the pump station will be off Cedar Street. That's where the water main that currently heads up to the water tank is. And that'll be the suction supply for the pump station. So for those of you that have seen the site, the site has been, I guess, sculpted, as you could say. As Ryan mentioned, it's kind of like a golf tee. So it's got a high point up in the upper right corner, and then there's a flat area where we would sited the pump station, and then a little bit of a hill drop, and then it's flat out toward Hopkins Street. So the pump station, as Ryan mentioned, will be pumping water. What it'll do is it'll draw water from the water main in Cedar Street and pump it into water main that circles around Gazebo Circle, and also back toward Hopkins Street, or South Street rather. So what you see on the site plan is the gray hatching is proposed pavement and road extension. So we'll be extending the road up Cedar Street a little bit, creating room for plowing, and then a driveway into the site with a T turnaround. And the road, or the driveway will drop about 5 feet from street level down to the site. The pump station itself is about 16 by 25 to 30 feet long. As Ryan mentioned, it'll house the pumps, control equipment, other issues relative to the site. Since we're paving and creating impervious surface, we're taking the water that accumulates there, and we'll be collecting it in a deep sump catch basin where it catch sediment, and then it'll go into some underground infiltration galleries. So as I mentioned, although the site plan is about 90% done, we still have yet to do a little bit of design just to size the infiltration gallery to make sure it can percolate all the water that comes down the site. Our intent there is to make sure that water that's coming down the hill does not impact the abutters, primarily the house at 156 Hopkins, which is immediately down gradient. So water and access is from Cedar Street. As Ryan mentioned, electric will be actually coming in from Hopkins Street. And although it hasn't been finalized, it'll probably be coming up the driveway to Gazebo Circle and then come in from the right side of the pump station and then feed in that way. But that will all be underground, so there really won't be any major impact. One of the things we've tried to do is to site the pump station and driveway in cleared areas and minimize tree removal. We're trying to protect and retain the trees that are adjacent to and next to the pump station and 156 Hopkins. But there are a few right up at the entrance driveway, which will have to come down, but those are smaller ones. And there will be some tree plantings to replace those trees. Exactly location and type of tree to be determined. The tree warden will be working with us on that specifically. The pump station is surrounded by a chain link fence as required by the DEP. And I think I've covered everything relative to the site. Cassandra, if you can pull up a couple of photographs of what the pump station will look like. What we've done is looked at classic New England architecture, houses in the area, the Gazebo Circle buildings, and we have a design in mind that I think reflects what's going on in the neighborhood, and it'll blend in very well. It's really just a classic. It'll look kind of like a garage, peaked roof, clapboard siding, intended to be relatively maintenance free. So we're looking at there's PVC plastic trim and composite siding. There will be a door on the end of the building, no other windows, 2 small penetrations for a vent fan intake and outlet. And other than that, really just, it'll look like a garage basically on the site. Color to be determined. So with the siding, there are lots of different colors to choose from, whether it's gray or red or green, but we'd figure a good New England color to match the surroundings.
Bruce, I don't want to interrupt you, but is anyone else seeing the pictures at all?
No.
Sandra, is there any way that we can?
Oh no. Okay, maybe it's a different screen. Hold on, let me. Are you still seeing the plan?
We're still seeing the plan, but Bruce did such a great job. I could just imagine such a
Oh
great.
man, I was like doing a nice scroll through the photos slowly. All right, let me share my others.
I probably should have stopped Bruce a while ago, but he was doing such a great job.
Why don't you get me going and I'll stop?
Let's see. Okay, can you see that?
There you go.
Okay. So this is a very similar pump station that we designed for the city of Peabody. We're looking to replicate this design. As I mentioned, it's composite siding, so you can really kind of pick your color. The end of the building will be very similar. There'll be a door on the right side. Okay, let's see.
Sorry, I was going to this better picture. Sorry.
Okay, so a door on the end. The heating and dehumidification unit is that kind of box in the middle, and then there's a pipe that sticks out. That's a blow off for pressure relief. On the side, there's electrical and control panels, the flow meter or the electric meter and all. This building has a asphalt shingle roof, but we'll be designing either asphalt shingle or standing seam metal roof. This is a view on the side. The one thing that this particular building did house a generator, hence the doors on the right-hand side. So the building in Gazebo Circle will be actually truncated by about 8 feet. So it'll be a little bit shorter. And there won't be an exhaust pipe going through the roof like that one is. Spinning around the pump station, just have a ventilation duct on the end. This one was very large for the generator. The one that we'll see is probably about a quarter of that size. You can also see the sort of architectural kind of embellishments, ornamentation in the upper corner, just to give it a little pizzazz, a nice look. And then the last face, that's the corner or the gable view. And again, the vent on the side will be about a quarter of the size of that one on the side. One note about the fence is Peabody chose to include barbed wire on the top. That is not necessary. So I think in our case, we're just looking at a standard chain link fence without the barbed wire on the top. Typically the area around, you see the paved driveway with a turnaround, grassed around the edge. Because our gazebo site is on a slope, there will be a granite curbing, essentially what's on the right-hand side of this picture, that will channel the runoff to a catch basin. This particular site was raised a little bit, and we just did what's called country runoff into the woods adjacent to it. So that's it. There were some questions, I think, at the last meeting about noise. And Cassandra mentioned that she was out at this pump station the other day, and you can't hear anything from the outside. The pumps make a very low-pitched whirring noise, but it doesn't go through the walls. The insulation on the building is such that it's pretty well completely sealed. So really won't be any noise to be heard in the neighborhood. I think I've covered everything that I can believe we talked about last time. So I guess I'll quiet down. If you have any questions, let us know.
Ryan, sorry, Ryan, anything further cover?
No, I don't believe so. This project in particular, I can't stress enough that it really does serve multiple benefits to that surrounding area, in particular to the gazebo circle, but it also serves a benefit to the neighborhood. So, and I think Bruce and the team have pretty much covered everything. It's a pretty straightforward project. And we can open it up for questions.
All right. I guess first off, I just want to make sure I'm not losing my mind. Right. We have not had a public meeting on this, or I haven't seen anything on this. So no. Bruce, the whatever, right, I assume that you're referencing an internal staff presentation that you may have made to Ryan or someone else.
Oh, was the
right, is it a DRT meeting?
That's
DRT
correct,
meeting,
John.
yes.
It was a DRT meeting.
All right, correct. Which for those in the public, that's a design review team meeting. So that's city town staff review of projects. So I just want to make sure, right? This is the first time that anyone's reviewed this from the public or even from this board.
That is correct. Yes.
I guess one question that I have is, with such a, I guess, I'm assuming this would be a lightly used driveway, or maybe you can give us some input on how often someone would need to come here. But I'm assuming it's fairly lightly used and infrequent. Is there an opportunity instead of pavement to do something, typical pavement, to do some porous pavement or something so that can minimize the stormwater issues? Or
absolutely, and that was one of the staff's comments was, and we will look into that. What we have not done yet is any soil evaluations to determine how capable the soil is for accepting water. So we'll do that. I would believe that porous pavement is very, very good choice for this site. It allows any water to infiltrate over a larger area, which just avoids concentrating the water in those infiltration galleries. So if the soils show that we can percolate everything through a porous pavement, we'll do that. If it's a combination of that plus infiltration galleries, then we'll do that also. We just want to make sure that during a heavy rainstorm that all of the water is maintained on site. But porous pavement is definitely part of the plan. Okay. At this point.
And then an idea about how often someone would need to come to this facility.
Typically it would be at most once per day or a few times a week. So, really I would say worst case is one visit a day, and Ryan can back that up if he wants. Unless there's something going on there, like some repairs, in which case there might be some utility trucks there. But otherwise it'll be a very quiet site.
Yeah, just to add to that, it is generally speaking once a day, and it would be during work hours.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. I'm looking at this plan and I'm seeing 10 trees that will be removed. Isn't there a better access off Hopkins Street? And why did you not choose to go that way for creating your paved area? answer?
Yeah, we came in because all the utility, at least the water main utilities were coming in that way, so we had to, there's excavation required to come in that way.
Okay.
But we could potentially bring just the utilities underground and bring a road in from Hopkins Street.
I didn't see any
the site would
trees.
allow it.
Yep, I didn't
One
see
of-
any trees below.
Right. One of our thoughts was that we were trying to keep all of the construction activity and the future use on the northern part of the site and leave the southern part open for recreation and access. And with a driveway there, that might cut down some of that ability. But I think that's really that's a call for the town to make that decision. We will design it either way. And this was our concept, so that's subject to change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Bruce. I think coming off of we have to do excavation through there anyway. We're losing trees just by doing excavation. And so by maintaining the drive off of the Cedar Street, we maintain access also to our tank. So we're gaining access to both the tank and the pump station, which is more efficient probably for operations, just to keep that in mind. And then there is potential for use, whether it's town use or just keeping it an open, sort of an open space feel on the southern portion of that lot. So just kind of trying to gain some experience from some of our past CPDC meetings on other projects and sort of mimicking that there, because that's kind of sounds what neighborhoods and residents want.
And I'm sorry, I have a question. You said, you just mentioned you lost me on something. You said maintain access to the tank also. Is this?
Yeah, so we're continuing access up to the tank portion here. And if we're doing daily inspections to the tank, we're also just coming off of that road to begin with anyway. So it'll give us an opportunity to maintain this lower area when we pave a little bit and pull the driveway off of that Cedar Street. We're typically up there, again, not once a day for the tank, but we're up there quite frequently.
And that's not paved up there, that's just a dirt road?
It turns over, I believe, to an unkept road. At some point it may have been paved, but I think at this point you can probably call it gravel.
I have a couple more questions, but Pam, I didn't want to stop you if you had more. One question is, does the DEP require a chain link fence or just a fence? And what I'm really getting at is are there any other alternatives that might be, I don't know, nicer for the neighbors to look at over time?
Unfortunately, and Bruce can correct me if I'm wrong, but unfortunately, I believe it has to be visual. You have to visually see through the fence for security purposes. So that really only leaves you with chain link. We went through the same sort of discussion on the water tank project, and we have the ability to pick any color. Plastic, black usually is the best. It does disappear better than green, believe it or not. Yeah. And then we are actually not going to put up barbed wire in this case. I think a 10-foot fence would suffice, or 8-foot.
Okay. My other question is this. I thought the illustrations of what the design and how tall it would be really helpful. And I'm wondering if those were available for neighbors to see in advance online. And a very specific thing is somebody reached out to me saying, hey, looking for like an elevation view or something. I'm just wondering what chance the neighbors would have had to get a feel for what the design, what the actual look of it would be before this meeting.
We can certainly provide an elevation view. I don't think that's an issue at all. I think one hasn't been provided yet because I don't know if we were certain on how the design was going to look after this first meeting. So we can put together elevation plans for the building. They have to be put together anyway, so we can provide those.
And the photos that we saw, those we just saw tonight, those weren't in the advanced materials, right?
There were 4 photos in the memorandum of changes that I posted online.
Okay, great, thanks. Sorry, I must have missed those, thanks.
The overall building height from ground to peak of roof, I think, is 17 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Heather, are you done?
I am, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple of questions. I noticed that you're having a second power line basically for redundant power supply. And if the power goes out in the town, there'll be no power, period. Does that impact this station? Will the tenants who require it for increased water pressure still get their water?
They will. When I had mentioned redundant electrical supply, I was specifically referring to RMLD's need for redundancy to Gazebo Circle. So the town benefits in that aspect. Since when we brought this project to forefront, it pushed their project ahead as well. And so there's a multiple benefit in the sense that they're going to gain a better and redundant feed to Gazebo. And from that, we're also going to gain a 3-phase feed that's currently not there to access the site. That being said, if this station were to lose power, which it will at some point, this system will just revert back to the pressures that we are currently seeing. So they will have flow, be able to access water supply. It will just be back to the minimum standard that they have now. So this booster station will enhance their domestic supply and enhance their fire flows, but in the respect to losing power, it'll just go back to what it is present day.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that big blue overflow pipe. How much water could eventually come out of that?
That's a good question. I don't believe it happens often. Bruce, I'm going to have to defer to you on that one. I think when we test them and maybe when they're airbound and things like that, that's when they'll probably discharge. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's an emergency kind of a pressure relief if there's a surge in the system. It would typically only occur if somebody opens and closes a fire hydrant too quickly. So if there was a fire in the area. Honestly, I've been designing these stations for nearly 40 years, and I don't think I've ever seen one blow off more than probably 100 gallons of water. It's a short burst to relieve the pressure, and then it shuts right off.
Okay.
What
It just seemed very large.
Well, yeah, it needs to relieve a large volume in a very short time, so that burst comes through probably within a few seconds, and then it's relieved the pressure and it's done, and the valve closes again.
All right, and that won't impact any of the neighbors?
No, not at all. Like in fact, I would be surprised if this discharged once every 5 or 10 years. It's really there to protect the pumps and pump station.
All right, and my last question is, because I have no clue how a pressure pump would work. Is it pulling additional water supply from the neighborhood to replace it? Or I assume at some point the pressure is based on amount of water, so somewhere you're pulling water from.
Yeah, exactly. So right now the water just flows up the pipe to Gazebo Circle, and what it will do is be diverted through the pump station. The pumps will, Ryan mentioned these VFDs, or variable frequency drives. It's a variable speed pump. So as much water is needed, the pumps speed up and they just increase the pressure. So the same volume of water will be going through the pumps and the pipes. So the neighborhood will not see any difference from what they see now. So it's kind of an instantaneous thing that as they need the water, the pump speeds up a little bit and just gives it to them at a slightly higher pressure.
All right, and the key there was it will not impact the water pressure of the neighborhood.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Well, let's go back to that statement for a minute, right? The point is to increase the pressure the water pressure for the neighborhood, right?
I think I was interpreting the question to make sure there's no adverse impact to the people on the suction side where the water is being drawn from. So if that's
Okay, yeah.
the nature of the question, then
No, that may have been the nature of the question. I guess what I was thinking about when this was being described, because I hadn't really thought about it much. When you add pressure to to a neighborhood like this, is there some potential in This is I'm not putting this on the town as a town responsibility, but just as a sort of what can neighbors expect? Is there a potential? Is if someone has some weak pipes or some almost leaky or little leaky pipes, if you add pressure, I imagine, to the homeowner's system, that may start to create some more issues, or not?
yeah, John, that's a good point. Anytime that pressures increase, there's always a risk that if somebody has a piece of plumbing that's near failure, it could fail. We've gone through many situations like this where communities have increased pressure to either a small area like this or a very large area. We just went through this with this pump station that we showed you in Peabody, where pressure was raised quite a bit to about 20 to 25% of the city, and there were no reports of any leaking or broken pipes. So, but it is important that before this goes online, that all the customers that will be impacted receive a notification, so that if they're unsure, they can have a plumber check their plumbing just to make sure that everything will be okay, and also so that they know that they're going to receive higher pressure and an improvement. And I think most people, just the fact they're getting more pressure, will be very happy.
Yes, yeah,
willing to take a little bit of a risk. But
yeah.
But that is a good point. So,
Right.
and that's part of the work that we'll be doing, working with the with DPW to make sure that notice goes out.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that also, this will be designed so it doesn't go over a certain height threshold too for domestic use. So
Right. All the pressures will be
working within the parameters.
Right, within the parameters of what's set by DEP.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions from the board? No, seeing shaking heads. All right. I'll open this up to questions from the public.
I have a question.
Sure, Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, my name is Ann Manna, not Anna, and on the plans it says Anna, so I just wanted to get that corrected. So we are abutters, obviously, we are right there at that lot right there, 156 Hopkins Street. So of course we have a lot of concerns. One of my first concerns is when the surveyors were out surveying, they first were surveying up by the water tank to see if it could be put up there. So I'm just wondering, why was that ruled out as instead of putting it down here? That's my first question.
Okay, I can field that one.
That'd be great.
The DEP requires a certain pressure at the pump station so that the pumps can pump effectively. And the elevation at the tank being much higher, that pressure is not high enough. So pump stations that increase pressure to areas are almost always at the bottom of the hill rather than the top, because they can push water up easily, but they can't suck it up, essentially, is what happens. And what can happen is when the pump station, when you need it most and the pressures are low, the pump station won't work to do what it wants to do, or what it needs to do, rather. So that's the reason why it's not up on the site. It's really primarily a hydraulics pressure issue, and following the state guidelines that we need we always need to make sure that we have enough pressure on the pump station suction side.
We should add, Bruce, if I could just chime on in here, we actually have some water main work up at the water storage tank, which is the primary reason why the surveyors were up there in the first place as well. So Cassandra, if you could just zoom in up by the tank a little bit. And to Ryan's point earlier, for the redundancy, if the pump station does go out, we have this point of connection now, or we will have this point of connection to the top of Gazebo. And there's also the connection at the Gazebo Circle entrance.
So could you have an entrance up that way by Gazebo instead of coming up?
No, the pump station has to be lower in elevation down the hill, and this is the best available site for that. The water main that Ben was mentioning is really just to provide additional, what we call looping of water mains to provide better fire flows to the area. And that water main will now loop through Gazebo Circle and come all the way back down Hopkins and provide better redundancy for the whole neighborhood up there. And I will add one thing. If you notice the plan, the driveway is shown kind of right on the property line. And we're working with the town to identify exactly where the property line is. And it at least with the information we had, which is just from assessors mapping at this point, it would indicate that the road sort of meanders over onto your property a little bit. But anyway, just to let you know that property corner will be fixed to assure that there's no adverse impact to your property. And that's.
Well, and maybe I'm not understanding this map, but isn't it going straight up like Cedar Hill up where there's already a dirt road there with the chain?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be going up there?
Up there, yeah.
And then taking a right, probably up behind our rock garden.
Right, yeah. We just want to make sure that, we do have a line of hay bales that will be set on the downslope area, and we want to make sure that no runoff, no construction debris or anything like that kind of rolls down the hill into your rock garden.
So, well, it's not just my rock,
and everything that's in it, all the plantings.
Well, not just that. We've lived here for a long time, and I know the Watsons are also on tonight, and they've lived here longer than we have. But when my parents lived here and Gazebo was being built, one of the concerns was flooding and overflow. They said it wouldn't be a problem. And I can't tell you how many times we got flooded out and the town had to come pump out the middle field and my driveway and our basement, because they didn't put the pitch in their driveway. So the water would just run down the driveway and it would overpass their drains. So flooding is a big concern of ours, as many as some other concerns, but that is, and they promised us then, oh, it wouldn't be a problem. It was a big problem. So that is very concerning to me. The point about the 10 trees, this map is kind of small. So maybe if those other photos were available, I would like to know what 10 trees. And I'd appreciate if someone could come out someday and really show us it. Mm-hmm. Where you're talking the road, that kind of thing. The other concern I'm going to bring up, and it's kind of it goes back from when the town sold the property to Gazebo. That land was supposed to be kept as recreational, and I just hope that someone did look into that to make sure that you weren't in any violation there, because we were told way back in the day that nothing was going to be built on that property, that it was supposed to be just a pure recreational kids park, dogs park. And frankly, unless we called to complain and other neighbors called to complain, they don't mow that land. It's very, it's poorly maintained, and to live next door to that, it's not really health-wise too, ticks and bugs and all that stuff. And there are a lot of children now that live up in Gazebo that do try to use that area and they can't. So that's my other point. I'm a teacher in this town, and I see kids playing up there. My own kids played up there. I just want to make sure that this is the best place and that this has to be done like this. I would love better water pressure. Don't get me wrong. You keep saying we'll have better water pressure. I'd like to know how much better water pressure. And I just want to make sure that everyone has looked into the fact that this can really be done on this property. Because we were always told from the town that they were not going to build on this, that it was going to be purely recreation.
John, I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. We did hear of that potential restriction that could be on that land, and we did some further research. From what we can gather, there's no deed restriction. Town meeting vote did not vote a restriction on this as well. So the land is just town-owned land. What you may be referring to is back during the subdivision in the early 90s or late 80s when this was developed. There was a plan that did show potential playground or something like that, or recreational use. That never translated forward in a final as-built plan. It never translated forward in a deed restriction or a vote from town meeting to restrict that. So there's no restrictions on that land. And it may have been an intent on when they gave that land or a discussion that they had, but that's not what was done on that land. So there are no restrictions there. And just to speak to flooding on this property, I've been here for 16 years, and I actually was the one that had to redesign the detention pond for Gazebo Circle because of the flooding that you were speaking about. So the town did get involved with that piece as well. It was a very long detention pond. For whatever reason was designed the way it was. It wasn't storing even 1/3 of what it could. So there was a sort of a dual basin design that was designed, and that has been rectified. And there's been a bunch of drainage work that was put in, as well as catch basin work on site for Gazebo Circle. So extensive amount of work has gone to correct that issue. And so just taking that historical information and anecdotal knowledge that we had, I did inform Weston Sampson of the issues that we had for flooding. So we will be making sure that whether it's just by pervious pavement or a combination of both, just in case the pervious pavement does fail, then we have redundancy to pick up some of that stormwater. So, and then to speak to your third point, I know they do go in there and cut that. They may not do it as frequently as some other areas because it's just open land, but now with this structure being there, they will be maintaining the land more frequently because they will be there. So that could be a benefit as well.
But the people who will be maintaining the building or going in, like you said, once a day, those aren't the people who come and mow the lawn.
So
correct?
Everyone works for DPW, so it will be one of the divisions of DPW that comes in and cuts that. And if it wasn't on a more frequent schedule, it can be put on a more frequent schedule at that point because we have a facility out there. So, that we can schedule into our weekly or biweekly cutting or whatever it is.
And when are you expecting, when are you expecting that if it passes or whatever it has to happen, I guess it doesn't have to pass, but when are you expecting this to start? And when would it be completed by?
Oh, we're hoping for a sort of beginning of fall bid, and then so construction to shortly follow if weather permitting. And hopefully this will be no longer than a year-long construction project. So hopefully by this time next year we'll be operational. If I'm off on that timeline at all, Bruce, you can correct me, but I don't foresee this being longer than a year project.
Yeah, the entire projects, Ryan, typically take about 1 year from start to finish, but the actual construction is usually, most of the work takes place over about 4 months. And I would expect most of that will probably take place in the spring and into early summer, depending on how quickly we can get the design completed, DP approval, and bids and start construction. It is possible to get things going this fall. Probably get a 50-50 chance on that, as Brian mentioned, based on weather and all.
Yeah, and I know there's a concern for trees, and we always try to preserve as many trees as we can and make little impact. And I know there's a group of trees up top that are being removed. I don't know if it's exactly 10, but we will be replanting in that general corner area after we're out of, in that where the 6-inch grouping of trees are, and then potentially maybe one to the right of the driveway, or maybe another one to the left of the driveway as another buffer. So that's always our intent.
I think it's 6 trees that were, the trees were surveyed, so
And
I believe it's 6.
I
Yeah, and-
counted 10.
So there's 4 here and then 2 here.
And then all the way down the driveway.
This one's retain and protect this tree, retain and protect these trees. So none of these will be harmed.
No, I understand that.
And then these are retained, and as well as these, and these are also retained.
so it would only be 6 trees.
That's correct.
Six trees, but keep in mind the 3 of those are 6-inch caliper trees that are grouped closely together. So if we were to replant in that exact corner, you may only get maybe 1 tree in that corner, and then we'd have to probably plant one a little further down from the hand just to make sure that the placing is far enough apart so the growth can actually happen that's supposed to for those trees.
And I have one last question too. I'm just wondering, is it going to have like a light that's going to stay on 24/7, like Gazebo has their lampposts and stuff, and especially in the winter they are very, very bright. I'm just wondering what type of lighting you're going to have there.
The lighting is really flexible and it's up to the town. Anything is possible. Some towns like a light on all the time. What's typical is the light that you see over the doorway, a small black
Right.
thing. They're typically on a motion sensor and would only turn on when somebody walks up to the door. But there is usually what we designed as a switch on the inside, so you can leave it on the motion sensor. You can turn it on if you want it to stay on while you're working there, or you can turn it off if it becomes a nuisance. So it's we try to design these with full flexibility, because sometimes even with the motion sensor, just leaves blowing around, they can turn the light on. So
there won't be any, high lampposts or anything like that.
there is no intent that at this time for a light that would be on all night that's high up on a pedestal or a post. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
And to follow up on that, Ryan, I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in a location like this, that it would be, the intent would be that it would be on a motion sensor.
Yeah, we would probably start off with a motion sensor, see how much it gets tripped off by any animals possibly or anything like that, and then adjust accordingly. For something like this, it's a pretty secure facility with the fence and with the doors, so the generally routine maintenance is really why we're only there. The only time we probably go at night is if something had happened.
Right. So, right, you're not anticipating that there needs to be any kind of security lighting on.
Not at this time, no. But I to just full disclosure, I can't say that in the future if we have a security issue that won't have to be addressed, right? So the intent's not to have anything out there, period. But if we do have vandalism that is occurring, then we may have to think about what we do for that. But to Bruce's point, I think we'll be fine with having this on, sort of like a motion sensor. And if that becomes an issue, we can always shut it off.
And you're not, I guess, to follow up on that, I assume that other utility buildings in town, you're not seeing any sort of regular vandalism where security is an issue.
No, but that, I'm just being open. That's the
expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason why we would go that route.
Yep.
And so we don't have that intent that's going to happen, but
where
that'd be the only reason.
I'm guessing that may be a little bit different of a scenario in Peabody, why they also want to have the barbed wire. So I'm not talking down about Peabody. I'm just, that's why you might want to do that, in some communities. So
I lied. I do have one more question. The road up to like where the water tower is now, it has that chain link going across. Will you be having, will it be like a closed off road? Will it have like a gate that the DPW people would unlock when they go up? What would that look like?
To be honest with you, we haven't had that conversation, but I would gather that the chain probably, at least the one that's going up to the tank, gets pulled back beyond the driveway, and then maybe if we wanted to or needed to secure the driveway going down to the facility, we would put one across the top of that driveway as well. But we haven't discussed that, and there may not be a need for one to go down to the driveway since it is enclosed in a fence. But again, we'll look into that, and we can get back to everyone on that.
Because that road, people do cut through that, you know, quite a bit. And even some people try to drive up there sometimes and then they notice the chain. So I am concerned what you plan to do there.
Yeah, we'll, I can discuss it with the design team. I mean, I don't want to design off the top of my head here, but I'm thinking maybe we pull the we pull that chain link back and maybe we leave a stub of that driveway in case someone gets deadlocked in there. They can just turn around in the driveway and tee out. But that's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. But we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question. Going back to what you said about there not being a deed restriction on it, I'm just wondering, was this property a gift to the town, and was there anything in there, even if it didn't end up as legally binding, was there anything that could be ascertained about the intention of how it came into town hands?
I could not find anything. I couldn't find anything through any of the through town meeting or anything like that that would indicate as such. There, you know, maybe there was discussions in some meeting back then. I don't know if it was planning board or CPDC at the time, but I couldn't find anything that indicated a restriction.
Well, I do know there was some, you know, my dad isn't, you know, here anymore, but I do remember, you know, my parents did go to those meetings and it was very clearly stated. And again, I don't know, like you said, I trust that you are looking into it, but I would just hope that you would look a little further and just really make sure.
We will certainly go back to looking and just confirming again. You know, there was such a lack of information and as built for Gazebo Circle to begin with, period, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that was the case, but again, there's nothing in the deed for the lot. There's nothing in the discussion or motion or article for town meeting. And those are usually the places that are something like that, you know, comes up, at least in town meeting. Sometimes it doesn't get transferred over to a deed, but you know, those are the areas that we have to look.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry if I'm consuming the questions, but anyone else wants to speak up, please just jump in. But I'm just wondering why it is so close to our property line and it's not further over a little bit more the other way.
So on the plan, you can see setbacks that we're required to meet by law. We have a 15-foot sideline setback, 20-foot rear and front setback, and another 15 side. And we're squeezing over almost the corner of that building to be as close to that 15-foot setback on that right property line. So it may look that way with the driveway, and the driveway, the intent of where it's coming down is to minimize grading and sloping. And then the positioning of the pump station as such, because we're trying to shift it over as much as we can. And we're also trying to sort of minimize what's seen as far as where access is too as well. So
thank you for that.
Any other question?
If I could jump in.
I'm sorry. There was I heard someone say they have a question first.
Linda?
Oh, Linda, sure, go ahead.
Yep, I live at 510 Gazebo Circle at Summit Village. And I did want to just clarify what I heard about the timeline. I went on the site and looked at the draft, and I saw it kind of echoes what I heard. It said something about starting in October, running in through August 2022. So I think what I heard, most of the work would probably happen in the spring and early summer of 2022, correct?
That's what we anticipate. If we have a mild winter, some of that work can start in the winter as well.
So the improved pressure we would be seeing likely by this, as you said, this time next year-ish, maybe.
Yes, if the DEP review goes according to plan, and depending on how long it takes to go through some of the public process, yes.
Got it. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great. And then was it Lance that I heard? Did you have a question?
Yes, it was. Yeah, Lance Watson. I live on the north section of the property at 16 Cedar. Ann, hi. I guess Ann doesn't hear me. My question is, the rectangle at the north end of the driveway that you have marked off, now that isn't a fence. Is that just like hay bales for a boundary area, or what is that?
That's correct. That's both. That's some erosion control and limit of work. That's correct.
Okay, so it's temporary.
That's 100% correct. Yep.
Okay, and like Ann had said, I would very much, and sure Ann would also, if someone could come down and physically get on the property with us and walk around and show us where everything is going and which trees are going to be taken down, we would both appreciate that.
Yeah, we can 100% do that. We can mark out the trees. Once we confirm, if that driveway location is appropriate, we can mark out the trees that we have to remove. And I'd be happy to meet with you out there and sort of go over this the best that we can on where we think the positioning of everything may be.
Okay, now as to the other thing about the way back when, the playground or whatever, or saving that area, as Ann said, we went through a lot of that, and the people buying the property, it was more of a verbal, yeah, we're going to help you abutters out. We're going to save this property for you. We're going to maybe build a playground or something, but it was a verbal, it was to be saved. Hard to believe anybody would ever lie to us and now take it away, but that's what happened way back when. So like I said, maybe there's nothing in writing on that. I don't know.
I will 100% go back, and the team will go back, and we'll dive back through all the information that we have. But unfortunately, all I have to go off of is what's written, what's recorded, and what's voted on. And those are the things that restrict and dictate what the parcels are used for. So
right, I understand.
I understand your, and I'm not saying that those conversations never happen. I have no way of knowing, without knowing any minutes or anything. Even if there were minutes, if nothing's recorded in the deed or the restriction, the restriction's not on the land. So we'll go back and just triple check that again. It's really important that we understand whether or not anything was transferred over in writing, but we'll triple check that again.
Okay. Now, if you guys could set up with Mrs. Manna and her husband, and she can contact me, and if we could all meet at the same time on the property, that would be good.
Yeah, I can certainly set that up offline. You can either contact me.
Now, Ryan, are you engineering in town? Is that what you are?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, Heather, also, if you could make it, you seem to be interested in watching out for the abutters. I appreciate that.
Ryan could probably do this, but yeah, keep me apprised.
All right. Okay, so Ryan, if you get in touch with Ann will get in touch with me, and whatever we can, just so we could see what's going on. It's nice to see you on the property and show us.
Sure.
Exactly what's going on.
I'd be happy to do that. That's fine.
Okay, very good.
And I
That's
can
all
reach out, I can get your information, I can reach out to you, and or you can email me directly and let me know when you guys are available. I'd be happy to
Yeah,
do that.
I believe I may even still have one of your cards. Okay, I'm gonna mute
I know we've worked together in the past on some of the projects that were in front of your house, so.
Yeah, they seem to like to live at my corner right there. Yeah, the water department, I know. All right, I'm gonna mute myself. Thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you. I guess one other thought, Ryan, is I know you talked about replacing the trees that are there. And I know that you want to have visibility into the site, but I'm just wondering if, once you come up with a final configuration, whether there's some additional screening, whether it's arborvitae or some other sort of landscaping that might be appropriate to, right, not create a complete buffer, but maybe a little bit of a softening so that they're not, looking, directly at chain link fence.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into some plantings that we can do, and maybe that would be beneficial to meet on site to see what might be possible for that. So.
All right, and then I guess the other thing I was thinking is, I don't know if it sounds like you've done a lot of stormwater design up along here, but whether there is some opportunity here to use if there's water that does come down this road that's not quite paved, whether there's something here that could be done to sort of intercept those flows that might come down that water into, like towards Ann's house.
Yeah, we did look at that as most of the lot does grade down through Gazebo itself, and then some of it touches the northeast corner. We'll see if we can intercept as much as we can. I know there's a swale on the northerly side of the property, which if you want to
the 100-foot contour that wraps around the back of the building.
Yeah, there's 100 contour just north of the driveway.
Oh, yep.
Nope. Let's go a little bit.
Right
there you go. Right there. So that's the intent of that, is to direct anything that is coming down off of that northeast site in and around and down the way it is coming down. That there's a swale on the easterly side of the property as well. You can kind of see it. That will effectively channel some of that out. Most of the runoff now will be intercepted by that driveway and sort of mitigated that way. So once we know what the soils are a little bit better, we'll size that infiltration gallery or porous pavement or both appropriately.
Okay. Great. Other questions or comments? No. So Ryan, I think there's a couple of things here, right? You're going to come back to us with some potential redesign, maybe not, maybe it'll stay the same, but sort of confirmation on the design for that site access for the driveway. I don't think that you heard any concerns or criticisms or design direction related to the building itself. I think what was presented seems to fit pretty well, and then certainly, right, doing a little more digging on the if there's any deed restriction, or probably, well, obviously there's not a deed restriction, but any other sorts of restrictions or promises that were made related to recreation on that site. So, and sort of confirming that, and then right in the meantime, you are going to meet with the neighbors to identify what trees you're looking at taking, and then how sort of just the layout of the site, and if there's other sort of smaller improvements that could be done. or tweaks that could be done to the design to make that all work. Right?
Correct.
All right. So I think that we do need to continue this. Not major issues, but some issues to resolve before I think it makes sense to take a vote on this. So, Julie, you said our July meeting was pretty full.
There's a lot of things that are like still up in the air that we're scheduling. So we could, if Ryan and the team from Weston and Sampson think they'll be ready, we could put this on the July agenda at 8:30.
Julie, what's the date?
July 12th, sorry.
I will have to defer to Weston Sampson on whether or not that's enough time.
I think that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the August meeting is August 9th. So
Yeah, to make your
July.
Yeah, to try and make your fall, you probably want to try and wrap this up in July.
Correct.
All right. So looking for a motion. What time did you say? July 12th at, you said 8:30?
8:30.
All right.
Motion to continue the 160 Hopkins Street pump station project to July 12th at 8:30.
Second.
All right. We'll have a roll call vote. Start with Pam. That was a yes. Heather?
Yeah.
Tony?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
John? Yes. All right.
And Andrew, if you could please make sure that we have the updated plan for this. I don't seem to find the CPDC plan
There were
in the drive. So
Pam, it was a little confusing. There are two things. There was the plan, but then there was a memo that had an updated plan that was attached that also had the photos.
Okay.
So you're actually looking for the memo
Okay.
that has all the plans attached to it. So it was a little bit confusing, but it was in there.
Okay. Thank you.
But certainly, right, I think to Heather's point, like, making sure that we continue to have that material up there on the site in advance of the meeting, which you did, but it was a little hard.
Haphazard.
Yeah.
I just missed the second page with those photos is what I did. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. All right. Thank you. So we'll see you on this item, right? We'll see you July 12th at 8:30. But I don't know if it's a different Weston and Sampson team that's going to, or if Weston and Sampson's going to continue, or just Ryan.
We will all be here.
Okay.
July 12th.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Next item on our agenda
Has been continued. Oh yeah. Where's this? Temporary cell tower?
Yeah, so the next
Where's
item, the next item on our agenda is listed right as 0 Auburn Street, listed as a temporary cell tower location. Pam, this is the water tower site.
Oh, I know which one it is. I just did
0
not see it
So
as an attachment or anything.
it was in there. So
Okay.
Ryan, do you want to start us off on this?
I would be happy to. As we
Right.
left it at our last meeting, the We would only be returning to you for a major modification if we realize that the location of the northwest corner was not feasible. That is the case. We put this out to RFP. We've had discussions with the cell carriers and also the design engineers for the cell carriers, as well as our design engineers from Weston and Sampson, and as well as the permanent building committee, who felt as though that the location of the northwest corner was not the optimal location for reasons of what we call our zone of influence. So what happens is with the ballasted monopole is we have the load gets dispersed down through the soil at an angle. And when that goes down at an angle, we can encroach into that with the excavation from our water tank, which we do not know 100% on what that diameter is going to be, but I can tell you based on prelim discussions, we will be encroaching into that. So what that will end up doing is creating an over-toppling and a failure of the structure. So we can't have that happen, and the potential is too great that would happen, so it makes more sense to move it to the easterly side of the property. It's a better positioning anyway. It's further away from the structure. I have met with Mark Delaney out there and had some discussions and explained the situation. And so the area that we're looking at now is just east of the fence line, the existing fence line. And I don't know if yes, in that
Can you
general
see my screen? Yep.
So there is a plan in the CPDC packet that has a red location that I had submitted in. It's in this general vicinity of the location. I will preface that this may or may not shift to the left or to the right, or north or south, based on we have a massive oak tree just to the left of the gravel driveway at 26 Beacon. At the top corner, right there. There you go. It's really hard to judge where the full canopy is on that right now with all the tree cover that we have. So when the trees are cleared, we'll have a better understanding of where the best location to place that monopole will be with the clearances that we need for that canopy and for the power lines. So right now, that is the general vicinity of where we're looking. It will be in the confines of the construction zone and will be secured with fencing. So there will be no ability to get onto the job site and to get onto that tower. And so that's pretty much the presentation. Nothing else has changed on this project, just the location of that temporary cell tower facility. Any questions?
So, right, this cell tower, it would be in this location for how long, do you think?
So, if everything goes according to plan and DEP's review continues and we're able to check a few boxes with town meeting, we're hoping that we can have this structure placed hopefully by mid-fall. That's the goal. It may be delayed slightly, it may not be. If we can accomplish that and we're able to do some sort of stripping of the soil on site and do some demo work on this water tank prior to the spring, that's really ideal, and that's really what we were trying to push for the scheduling. So as long as we're able to do that, then we hit the spring construction season with just pure construction, from foundation to the pedestal to the tank construction. Once the tank's constructed, then everything can be moved over, carriers and town equipment, and then that would come down. So, you know, I'd say a period of 18 months, maybe that might be up. It could be faster than that. It all depends. But it, you know, it will be a temporary tower that's visible. And we will try to work to the quickest schedule that we can to get that off-site.
So, this is being constructed or by the cell carriers. I use that term lightly. I mean loosely constructed, right? They're the ones that are going to facilitate this being,
So that's
being
correct.
put up. And I guess my question is there some limitation that you're going to have on that in terms of, you know, how quick, I guess, to cut to the chase, how quick and what mechanism do we have to force the cell carriers off this tower onto the water tank once the water tank is complete? Because if we know anything, right, utilities take their own sweet time on doing things, and right, if it's not in their best interest, if it's their best interest to stay on this monopole, they're going to drag it out as much as they can. So how do we keep that from happening?
So since our last meeting, an RFP has gone out. The RFP was responsive. It was awarded to AT&T to construct the tower, which will be funded and constructed by that carrier group. They'll have their own construction group that they sub this out to. And so my understanding is it could take, you know, relatively in construction time, relatively quickly, maybe 3 weeks to erect the tower. That might be on the short side. And then really putting up the new equipment, that takes some time and a while, and then running the conduit. And the same thing goes for the town's equipment. We also have to place our 911 equipment up there, and that's going to take some time. Once that happens, we can decommission everything on the water tank. And so it's really crucial for us to get this going as quick as we can. So we have this fall construction season that we can deal with. And then to answer your question, we're in the process of drafting the RFP, which the carriers are very interested in for obvious reasons because of the temporary structure that they're constructing. But they're looking for a more permanent solution as well as we are on the new water tank. So that RFP for the leasing is being drafted right now with procurement, myself, and town council, and hopefully that'll be going out soon so that they have a permanent location to go to. And that'll be more advantageous for their signals to go back on a higher tank than it would be to stay on this temporary structure. So it's more advantageous for them to be on the tank for coverage purposes than it would be on this temporary tower, which is only, you know, it's going to have limitations on where it is.
So remind me sort of the differences in heights, the tower, the temporary cell tower versus.
So the temporary structure will be about 140 feet tall. At the top will be the town's equipment. And then there'll be, I believe, 2 carriers only on that monopole. And the reason why that has to be at 140 is because the tank, or the new tank that is going up, is going to be a big reflective object in the way. It's sort of line of sight issue, if you want to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so at least for the town's equipment as well, we need to be up well above that. And the tank sits currently, I want to say, between 110 and 115 feet, somewhere around there, depending on where you measure it to. But and so that's where the difference in height is going to be, and that might be, could be slightly different as we're going down gradient slightly, maybe about 2 feet. So we might be 2 feet shy of that top elevation.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board?
I have a question. My recollection, when we were looking at this foundation being over on the other side of the tower, was that the tower would be temporary, but the foundation would not be. And I guess I'm wondering if you can tell me if that's the case, or if I can be hopeful in remembering that the idea is to actually tear up the foundation and restore the ground beneath also, because that's a big area to just kind of leave there.
So that's a great question. and I wouldn't be surprised if we're all confused based on how many conversations we've had about this, but this is a ballasted monopole. And so what that means is the ground basically gets leveled out, have a gravel pad. That's it.
A gravel pad. Okay.
On top of that sits this metal framework. And I'm probably simplifying this, but this is essentially what it is, the metal framework. And on top of the metal framework goes about, I believe it's 300,000 pounds of concrete block. And that's the
right.
anchor.
That's right.
That's the anchor that's used for not only anchoring the pole, but also stopping it from overtopping during a windstorm. So that's why you have that heavy weight. And that, in a sense, makes up the difference for if you had an in-ground mount. And an in-ground mount would have had a smaller footprint, but it's also more expensive and slightly more permanent. So like you'd have to go back and either decommission it below grade or leave it in place. So ballasted is the intent is to be temporary and to be removed, and it's quite costly to keep it on site, to be honest with you. So the point is to get it in and get it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? No?
Sorry, I was doing something else.
Oh.
Is the vehicle decontamination pad also new?
According to, yes, on this plan, yes, that you're seeing, but we didn't, the intent is really just to show the temporary tower. This plan was more for the construction drawing set that was going out. So,
Okay.
but yes, that's from what you saw. What that is a big stone entrance that allows for the tires to be rumbled clean. So.
Okay. All right. So back to the tower. First, when the RFP went out, did it not specify the 3 potential locations?
It did not. It specified the northwest corner, which was what we had agreed upon at the last CPDC meeting.
Yeah.
To use as our location. And that's how the RFP was awarded, based on that location. With the loading requirements and everything that we've seen and what we know from the loads, we know that we're going to have an issue with the zone of influence for that water tank versus the that cell tower. And it's also really a very, very tight location, to be honest with you. So that, coupled with the loading requirements, really makes it an easy decision to move it to the easterly side, which we have to do.
But do you have to move it that far easterly?
We do. It's really hard to see on this plan, and one would think we can stick it in that northeast corner. But if you were to go out there, I'm sure the neighbors will understand what I'm saying. There's a massive oak tree that's there. It's a beautiful oak tree. We've trimmed it up. It's in healthy condition, but the canopy on it is so large. You know, we obviously can't have the canopy and the tower intermingling for safety reasons. And then also we have the wires where we have to keep a certain distance off the pole from those power lines. And so you sort of start getting limited on where you can possibly put it. And then you also have to start looking at where the most level area we have, which is, you can kind of see in the contours, it starts to level out a little bit there. So,
well, I'm confused why the level area would be necessary, since you'd be doing the site work to level it off anyhow. You're looking at a 25 by 25 pad, correct?
Yeah, but
assume you're going to level it.
We're going to level it as best that we can, but I mean, to be honest with you, we don't want to have to cut 2 or 3 feet out from the hillside. You know, so if we can work with the contours of the site we're going to, as it is, we're stripping 12 inches of soil off this site prior to, so we'll be basically taking down all the trees and stripping all the site, which was agreed upon to remediate the lead. Once we do that, we'll create a level area the best we can, you know, sticking this as tight as we can to the site, away from the road, take into account driveways, power lines, trees, and then we'll locate it that way. And again, this is the best that we have for location with those trees being there now. Once we cut them down, we'll be able to, you know, tighten up the site a lot more, depending on where that tree canopy is.
So you're saying you could still be moving the pad once you clean up the site? Is that what?
There is potential for this to be shifted in a better location, maybe tighter to the site if we can, based on that oak tree's canopy. I don't know. It's very difficult to ascertain where that oak tree canopy is with all the foliage that's out there right now. So in order for us to really know, once we strip this area, then we can tighten up the location, maybe to the left by 5 feet, maybe, you know, down 5 by 5 feet. But in this general location is where we know it has to go.
And I guess the issue I have is for basically what amounts to a 25-foot platform and 140-foot tall pole, I question why it has to go there. I haven't heard anything.
I think I've made it pretty clear why it has to go there. The northwest corner, we have a zone of influence issue. We've tried, we tried to go in that location and listen to what we've heard at CPDC and with the public. When we got into it and with the designs, it's not, it can't happen. It engineeringly cannot happen. It would not be prudent for us to put it there. In order for that to even exist to happen there, we'd have to shore up the structure with in-place shoring, which would cost a fortune, where we can just move it to the east or the easterly side of the site, which keeps it even further away from the PIC zone and further away so we don't have an issue with zone of influence. It really only leaves us with a very small window of placing this tower. I really do understand the site is very small. No matter where we put this, there's going to be an impact of it visually. I will stress it is temporary structure, but there's really no other. There's no other area to put this. There's no other area to put this. Period.
Well, if you did the other structure where you actually put the pole into the ground.
The town of Reading is not paying for this structure. The RFP came back as a ballasted monopole structure.
Correct. I know the town of Reading isn't paying for it.
So the difference between a ballasted monopole and an in-ground foundation is quite substantial. And I will remind you that an in-ground mount foundation is a more permanent foundation than a ballasted pole. And the intent, if we really want to keep this as temporary, is a ballasted monopole sits on top of the surface, which is removed. So I understand your comments, and you know that would have a smaller impact having in-ground mount rock anchored, but it also increases the cost. It also increases the cost of which we're not contributing to.
Correct, but then again, there is another option of the cell towers go down for a year.
No, that's not an option. The town has made it clear, and the select board have made it clear that they do not want to have a disruption in service. For
yeah, Tony, I don't think that's an option. You have a pretty dense neighborhood that all relies on those cell towers. That right? We live in a time now where cell phones are not an option, right? Cell phones are people's 911. People rely on them. People don't have wired phones anymore. So I think taking those down for a year is not an option.
My true issue here is that we said, okay, well, here's location 1, primary, location 2, secondary, and we even came up with a third location. Said those are probably the best spots to put it. And now we come out with a location that's basically smack dab in the middle of the area that we were going to try and reserve as green space.
So let me clarify this, because the last plan that we had submitted, we had in the northwest, I don't have the cursor, but in the northwest corner of the fence line.
Yes.
Right? And then we also had one that showed in the northeast corner of the fence. Okay. I don't see much of a difference between the northeast corner versus where that's there now. Going out in the field and looking at the site, it's very clear. If you haven't been out there, it's very clear that it's very close to the power lines, and that the tree canopy, from what we understood from the conversation with the neighbors as well, it's a beautiful tree. We need to stay away from the tree canopy. Number one, to preserve the tree. Number two, we can't have any conflict between the tree and the monopole itself. We have to have a distance away from it. And so, like I said, given the canopy that we have there now, this is our best guess as far as how close it's going to be to Beacon Street, that it will be. It could shift in a little tighter. And the intent is to keep it as tight as we can to the site. I will clarify even more that the intent of, if you remember from our meetings, we are clear cutting and stripping this whole entire corner. The trees will be gone. The site will be down 12 inches. The soil will be removed. And at the end of the project, soil will go back on site. Grading will go back to as close to the natural grade that we have there now, loomed and seeded, and then we will come back and do plantings as necessary in that whole entire area. There is a potential to even have funding to go even further as far as any amenities or anything else that need to be added there. So nothing has changed with the intent of that space. The fence line still being moved to the left-hand side. And really the only discussion that we're having here is the temporary cell tower that has to go in. It's being shifted.
And my concern is a significant shift.
I'd be happy to hear if there's another location on the site where this can go that meets engineering specifications and has room to fit in a safe manner. That's not in a laydown area or not in a zone of construction.
Well, I don't know what the zone of construction is. I am assuming the laydown area is the single circle with the hash lines. And it looks like you've got a 25-foot pad that you could put right above it next to the cell building.
Again, one of the locations on the last plan that you saw was in that back corner. I just explained when we went out there that back corner is actually too close to that oak tree, and in the opinion of those who construct cell tower, that wire is too close. So it's just too tight. In practicality, even when they're lifting this, it's a 140-foot pole. It does come in segments, but when they're lifting and placing this, there's a potential that it could hit the power lines and things like that and put workers in unsafe conditions. So again, when we have the trees cleared out of that area, we'll have a better understanding of the room that we have and how tightly and closely we can shift this to the westerly side of the property. I will tell you that's more advantageplace for us to move it to the westerly as we can, because the town of Reading has to also place conduiting and wires from that location to our radio building. And so if we can shorten the length of that, that's less conduiting and wiring, which is very expensive right now, than the town needs to put in. So it's advantageous for us to shift this as close as we can to the site in a very safe manner.
All right.
Other questions, comments from the board? No. All right. Comments from the public?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Mark or Jackie, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I used Jackie's picture because I
Yeah.
thought that was good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the commission. I have one question and two other modifications that I'd like to have considered on behalf of our neighborhood. My first, well, let me start off by saying that Ryan has spent a lot of time and the communication has been fantastic. So, you know, we have no issues with the work and the time. You know, Ryan has certainly put it in and in talking to us regularly. So he's done a great job. My question is, does the applicant intend to seek zoning relief for this temporary tower? That can be a yes or no question. I just would like to know if the intent is, do they believe they need zoning relief? And I can just leave that hanging out there. I can get an answer later, but I'd like to know what the intention is. The important things, though, are the two modifications that we'd like to have be part of this. The first of which is, you know, a construction plan. The previous matter before the board, before the commission, they were asking for something similar. You can appreciate that we've got a dozen or more single-family houses within 100 feet of this site, some even a lot less, including my home. It would be helpful to be able to anticipate when certain activities are going to take place in the site, so we can make sure we have our windows closed. If we're working from home, we can get out of here. We're not inviting kids over. A lot of kids in this neighborhood. If there's a lot of noisy, dirty activity going on. So we would ask, you know, prior to construction actually beginning, that, you know, we get a schedule of some type that lays out what we can expect so we can plan for it and deal with it as best we can. And I don't know if every couple of months something like that could be updated. If you know that they're coming in and tearing down the tank, it's going to be noisy. I know I've done a lot of work from home. I may drive to Boston and go to my office because of the Zoom calls and all that we've been doing over the computer. So that's the first request. The second request is, and I'd like to point to this map. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the map, you see this dotted line that runs from that bottom right-hand corner to the cell building. I've talked to Ryan about this. There's a problem with this. If you follow that dotted line from that corner to that building, those are telephone poles and wires. There's 4 wires. They're relatively low. Maybe 15 feet off the ground is the bottom one. As you notice, you know, that's the open space mitigation plan to try to diminish some of the impacts of this project on our neighborhood. So, you know, all the trees are coming out. They're going to be tearing up all the dirt. What we're going to be left with going right through the middle of this open space is these telephone poles and wires. So what Ryan and I have talked about is, how do we relocate? I raised this once before, those wires. So, you know, there's at least 3 options we've come up with. One is, and talk to Ryan about these 2. If you look in the left-hand side of the map, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's the public safety building where their equipment is. Their equipment is going inside the tank. So one of the recommendation was, well, why don't you have the carriers put their equipment in the public safety building? And then that whole side of the site is clear. A second option is, instead of these wires and these poles being there, why can't you run the wiring underground? You're taking all the trees, you're digging up all the dirt. That's the time, if you want to run those wires underground, economy of scale, it's the time to do that work then. But I think a third option might even be the best one. And Ryan and I didn't talk about this, but if you look at where, again, if you follow that line from the bottom right corner to the building, you see the new fence line. Yes, so there's, yeah, you see, you just had the cursor on the pole. There's the fence line. Right outside, if you went straight down through that circle with the lines through it, from that telephone pole, there's a, to Auburn Street, there's a telephone pole right outside the fence there. You can run the wires, and it's a much shorter run. You can run the wiring right along, right in line with the fence. You can even put the, if you need a pole in between those two, you can put it right up the inside of the fence. And you clear that whole side of that site instead of, after we go through what I think is going to be hell for at least 18 months, and we're going to have this open space. It's actually going to be really nice open space because it will be open. We won't have wires and poles. So we've talked about this. This is one of the only committees or boards we get to speak to try to, you know, other than talking to Ryan. So if this commission would weigh in on this, I don't think what we're asking for is unreasonable, easy for me to say. You know, we'd like to see this type of change to be, you know, we're making a modification tonight. This should be part of this construction project. There's no reason why it should be put off till later, you know, after this thing is done. Then we have to revisit this. You know, how long does that take? Does it ever get done? So that was my question. Those are the two requests. We're hopeful that the commission will consider and push the applicant, you know, to deal with, you know, a construction plan updated from time to time. When is this going to begin? How long do you anticipate it going to take? So we can be prepared and try to do something with these utilities. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your input. I'm going to say I completely agree with you on that power line. Right, it's 15 feet is off the, you know, 15 feet elevation is probably generous. Right, it's pretty low, and I agree in the final condition when this is a park. Right, you can't have. I mean, that makes no sense of having that power line run right through the middle of there. So, you know, I'm not sure, Ryan, what the right answer is in terms of addressing that. You know,
if
sure.
I have an opportunity, I can actually respond back.
Sure.
I've had these conversations with Mark, and so we were out there with AT&T and their construction group and their tower constructor, and we were looking at specifically the location of these wires. And I've also reached out to RMLD. If it's possible, again, this is a service line as well, so I can't weigh in 100% on that. It's not our service, but I've had conversations with the carriers, and I think there's some potential to get that relocated. And I don't want to commit to underground or maybe an overhead from that pole, but certainly there's opportunity for us to do that. And it has come up separately that I've had that same conversation with the carriers outside of Mark coming up with that too. So that's the plan. I have to figure out how many conduits that we need in order to do that. And there's some requirements of when you go underground, what you need to do in distancing. So I don't have that information, and I can't speak for their service. This is secondary lateral, so I can't speak for that. But I am working on trying to get that relocated as we speak. That's number one. Number two,
can we? Before you move on to number two, can we, right, just like you said in the last in our last hearing, right, getting something in writing, not that we don't believe you, Ryan, but getting something in writing is always important. Without, I guess at this point, without details, understanding you can't commit to details, but as part of this modification, could we get an agreement that in the, you know, as part of this modification, it will incorporate a rerouting of that line before the completion of the project. So leaving what rerouting means, right? Whether that's underground or running off a different pole, but in the end condition that we don't have a power line 15 feet off the ground running through the center of what's supposed to be open space.
I'm working on some conditions. I can screen share the decision if that's helpful.
Before you answer.
I just want to keep in mind that
Sure.
everything's subject to funding at this point. So, I just want to just put that out there in the open that this will have to go in front of town meeting, possibly. I think the potential of that happening is very good with the fluctuation in steel prices and some of the scope that's increased on this project from this process, but it is subject to funding. And I am currently in front of another board as well that's concerned with value engineering on this project as well. So just putting that out there. In the meantime, I think I just wanted to address Mark's comment about keeping the residents up to date. I'd be happy to do that. We can do that through email if we can get an email chain together. I think that's probably possible. I think you guys have a good connection to the neighborhood, so we can do that. And once we know for certain what our construction schedule is going to look like, we can send that out and have updates and milestones. We can let you know when milestones are going to happen. So say like a demo of the tank and things like that, or when we're bringing in a big crane or things like that. We're going to want to let you know anyway. So I don't think that's a problem at all to do that.
So Julie, can you bring up that that decision? And I guess on your other point, your first point about zoning relief, yeah, I don't. My understanding is that there is no specific zoning relief that's needed for a temporary facility like this. It needs to go through site plan, or I'm not even sure it needs to go through site plan, but it is going through site plan, but not necessarily zoning relief.
So here's a condition regarding the construction schedule prior to the start of construction. Is this all showing up on your screen? Like, is it big enough?
Yes.
It is showing up. Yep.
And then I can show you the other one I just put in regarding the electrical.
Should we define, I'm sorry, should we define the neighborhood? I mean, right from I know, Ryan, you said as part of an email chain or a text chain or something, is that I'm going to say, is that good enough? That seems, that honestly, right, that's a way we all communicate, but it seems a little bit informal.
So, I guess, let me just speak generally on what we do for most of our projects. The neighborhood, to some extent, a larger area, we'll get a reverse 911 or what we call reverse 911. So a code red, they'll receive that prior to start of construction. They'll receive one of those when we have a major sort of activity that probably will potentially shut down a roadway or something like that if we have to. Usually we try to only limit that to maybe once that we do code red. And then from that point, we'll keep the engineering's web page up to date as far as what we're seeing for activity on the project and what we've done and what we potentially will see for the next week. And that's what we'll do on a formal basis for the website. So if we're not grabbing everyone in those sort sort of that that chain that I just spoke of, they'll see it on the website as well. Outside of that, I think that's the best way that we can probably accomplish the updates. I'm happy if anyone wants to call me or email me and talk about the project, and then, you know, what might be coming up and some concerns as we go through the project. I'm going to be on site, to be honest with you, and I'll have one of my staff members that's out there probably every single day of the project that's happening. So I'll have someone on site as well.
Okay.
I think that should take care of the
but you do, right. I guess the point is, what I heard is you'll do the email chain, but you'll also have this information up on your.
Yeah, we will formally have a to meet the general audience. We'll have the information up on the website.
Okay. Great. And then Julie, the other change there.
Oops, where did it go? Oh, here, it's up there. So I just added it in under general conditions related to, and then it's like, here's the community use condition, soil remediation, and then I just put it down here.
I like that. Any other, Ryan, are you, does that?
No, I think that, I think that's fine. I haven't finished conversations with RMLD, so I don't want to answer for them.
Yeah.
But, I think that's good.
Anyone else from the board comments on those changes?
Those both look good to me.
All right. And I wanted to, I'm sorry, I wanted to go back and make sure, I don't know if others had comments or questions from the public. No, do we have any either virtual hands up or real hands up?
Thank you.
Seeing, I do not see any. So I think this is something. I think this is something we can move ahead with. Julie, can you scroll back up?
Do you want to go through the decision? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just included the modification in with your prior decision since they're happening so close in time and
okay. Yeah.
Continuity's sake. So hopefully these records won't be lost 30 years from now. So anyway, the modification changes I just highlighted in yellow. This is the information that was submitted, which will update with the plan that was shown tonight, which is just a more official version and slightly different than the one Ryan had marked up last week. So everything that's not highlighted is old from the prior decision. And then the new stuff, again here, like I'll just, I put, instead of northeastern corner, I just put eastern half of the site as depicted on the plan shown tonight. So I'll just have to get that, the detail about that to put in here. And then I highlighted some questions that we had, and I wasn't sure if Brian could clarify some of them. So here's the first one.
I think if construction aside, that's the only impact that we'll have on that use. So it won't impact future use.
So it's just more like a timing, like the,
Yeah, it's just within the
to
construction
come
schedule.
down.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Is
So
that
there's no future impact on that open area.
so like once the tower is no longer there,
Correct.
be available? Okay.
Yeah, it's just
There's no permanent different impact to that area.
no. Once it gets removed, it will be graded with loom and then seeded, and then depending on what happens with that space, I would assume the intent is right now to do a bunch of plantings for trees in a grove style area. But that's open for
Discussion.
So we could put together a plan and then go through a little process with that.
I think it's worthwhile, just as you're doing there, Julie, to you just state that that's the intent, knowing that intentions aren't firmed. Given the conversation we just had about maybe lost intention 30 years ago, good to remember that.
I really hope that temporary tower is not up for 30 years. I'm sure.
I know.
I'm sure.
But we
Mark
don't
and
know how
Jackie
long
feel
it's
that
gonna
way
take
too.
to make
We
that
don't know.
work. I hope it's not 30 years either.
Can we put a condition to that effect in?
As much as I love this project, I don't want that tower up that longer than it has to be.
Oh, I'm just putting notes here, and then tomorrow, so I can put them in tomorrow in a more clear mind. If that's okay with you.
Yep.
Okay. And then another question was impacts to trees resulting from the relocation of the tower. A lot of those trees were going to come down anyways, my memory.
All of those trees.
Okay.
The only one that all the trees. So we're not impacting any other tree that wasn't previously on the plan.
And then we just talked about rerouting of utilities. Are there any other utilities that need to change because of the new location?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Any additional soil disturbance or remediation for that?
That area was being remediated regardless. Same as the trees.
The fence will temporarily be different than shown on the plan, right? While the tower's up, the fence will be like it.
If memory serves me, I think we showed the fence to the extent of the limit of the property, but if it doesn't show that, then it will go to the limits of the property to make sure that we encompass a secure site.
But eventually, it will go back to where
it will go back to what was agreed upon, with that fence being moved as tight as we can to the westerly side.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't clear to me, or I don't have a recollection of what the fence the timing of that, the movement of that fence to its permanent location. I knew the idea was that you had to excavate all that soil out,
right.
And presumably you'd be taking the fence down then, right, while you're doing that, and then you would need to secure the site. So my presumption was that soon after you did the soil excavation, you'd move the fence to the permanent location, although I don't think that was ever specifically said.
No, I don't think that's accurate to say that when we're done with, when the temporary cell tower is decommissioned, then the fence will be well,
Right.
maybe even before that. But it's kind of hard to say means and methods, but I would say either shortly after that tower is decommissioned and we don't have to secure it anymore, then that permanent fence is moved to its location, or if we have the ability to move that fence just prior to the decommissioning and then remove the remaining security fence afterwards. But I would say the safe bet is when the temporary tower is decommissioned, the site will be secured in its final fencing plan.
But in the just for clarification, in the meantime, right, while all the construction is going on, the intent is that pretty much the entire site would be fenced off, which includes the monopole.
Yeah. Yes, that will have to happen to secure the site. So temporary construction fencing will be up to secure the site.
Right.
And we will utilize whatever area we strip, we'll utilize for staging and or whatever purposes we need.
So I might add some clarification to this condition, that it's to talk about the timing of this, the location of the fence, so expectations are clear.
Yeah, I would just say that the permanent location of the fence will be done. That's usually one of the last things we do, is as we're clearing up, looming and seeding, we're putting up the final fencing and all the site amenities.
This I think you already addressed. As well as this.
Yep.
And then I was thinking we might want to, I don't know, maybe just make a note that this is the reason for the modification.
Yeah.
It says happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Figure out something there, but maybe leave it in, like, just in case.
Right. For
goodness knows. And I think that was all that I had. Yeah.
All right. Other comments, questions, or discussion?
According to the RFP, is there a end date for the temporary cell tower?
I will, there is something in there, but I'll have to confirm it. I don't have it in front of me. I don't want to misspeak and give the wrong information.
Okay, but could we put in the condition that, as per the RFP, the cell tower will come down? I know we joke about it staying up for 30 years, but I really would prefer something somewhere to say it is coming down at a given time.
I believe that's addressed in the RFP and contract itself. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't read it off to you, but it would be controlled under that agreement, under that contract.
Do you know if it was based on any other condition as opposed to a straightforward date?
it was based on a, you know, our best construction timeline that we could think of. So there's probably X amount of months from erection of the tower in there.
See, I would have thought it'd be X amount of months from erection of the tank.
No, this is for the whole length of how long the tower will be in place. So it's not just
Right. But if the tower project, if the tank project gets delayed for some reason, and you set a date specific for the tower, then, you know, the tower would need to come down before the tank is complete.
yeah. Again, it can be it's a contract with the town and the carriers, and if that were the case, that could be amended fairly easily, because obviously there was some issue that had happened where we had a delay in construction, and that would not be the fault of the carriers. I don't have that RFP sitting in front of me right now.
So
I can't speak.
I guess since Julie does need to make some modification, we're going to vote on this modification with still Julie making some changes to it after the fact. But right, the intent is here. Would we feel comfortable voting on this with the intent of the end date of the tower being included in that temporary tower section, and Ryan giving that to Julie to include in here?
I would find that acceptable.
I would just add consistent with the RFP issued by the town, or the contract issued by the town, because then if for something happens and it needs to be amended, then that's the controlling issue. That's a controlling contract. All right. Other items? No? All right. So I think we're ready to move ahead with this.
All right, so do I move? Make sure I'm getting this right. I move to approve the major modification for 0 Auburn Street, the water tank replacement.
As amended.
As amended, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Further discussion? No? All right. We'll have a roll call vote, starting with Pam.
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
John? Yes. All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you, Weston and Sampson team.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And thanks for the neighborhood for providing. I think we're ending up with a better project than we started with. Ryan, I think you'd agree, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for all your input. All right. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Which is, sorry, or which was going to be, continued public hearing, 40-hour plan review for 18 to 20 Woburn Street. Julie, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the applicant has requested that we continue. Did that be continued?
Yes, to your next meeting, July 12th, and they're in the 7:30 time slot.
All right. July 12th at 7:30.
Yes.
All right.
Vote on that. You should vote on that.
We should vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Motion,
go ahead.
motion to continue the 18 Woburn Street site plan review for 40R district to July 12th at 7:30.
Second.
All right. Roll call. Pam,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
John, yes. All right.
Great.
Next item, meeting minutes. Did I even see those? Do we
You are
have them?
spared tonight.
All right. I didn't remember seeing those in the in the folder.
And I did put on the agenda a discussion of commission reorganization, which usually happens in July of every year, just so you could start thinking about it, or talk about it if you want tonight.
Sure. So I think probably just a brief conversation. If you recall, I know Linda wasn't here, but I extended my chairmanship, or you all voted for me to extend my chairmanship through the sort of COVID period to keep that all working well. But so that means I've been chair for 2 years. So it's time. It will be time in July for that to rotate certainly. So typically it's been precedent, I guess, that the person that's the secretary is typically nominated to be the chair. That would be you, Pam. I just wanted to give the heads up, that's really what the typical sort of rotation has been. So I guess notice to Pam that, think about that if that's something that you would be comfortable with. I think, right, it's not a hard job.
As long as Julie and Andrew keep me in line, I'm okay.
All right. I thought we just should have that heads up before it gets sprung on us all that it's July and it's time for a reorg. So.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And other members, right? That's not the way it has to be. So if you want to vote elsewise, you can. So just putting that all out there. All right. Other items, Julie?
Yeah, I can give an update. That's not really an update, but as of, let me just see what time today. I got the email. As of almost 6 p.m. tonight, I heard that there's been no official decision coming from the State House regarding what happens after starting tomorrow in terms of remote meetings. So the Senate discussed a bill passed a bill last Thursday to allow for online remote participation to continue. I think I saw 2 different dates. One was through the end of December and the other one was until April next year. So I don't know which one officially, but it will be supposedly discussed by the House tomorrow. And then maybe some resolution at some point this week that gives us guidance about how to move forward. But barring that, or if that doesn't happen, you are supposed to be in person starting tomorrow. So We will keep you updated because July is the next meeting's a month away. So there's time for things to settle out, and we can figure out if there's going to be any sort of remote, like any sort of hybrid scenario that's allowed under open meeting law. I'm not sure if that's actually being discussed or not, though. So it's my non-update update.
I guess not that I have any say in it, but maybe we do. Maybe we'll have options, right? Because town hall is now open. I do think there's value to being in person, having these meetings in person. I do think there's also value in providing the ability to people to call in remotely as well. So I think if we can be in person, given the option that there's only one, we can only choose one. I think that at least for the time being, that I would prefer to be in person. I think it provides more, actually some more better dialogue on topics. I should put it that way. But I truly hope that we can figure out how to do it, so that we include both in person and remote. But knowing that may be a challenge in the near term.
Great. I think town hall is getting equipped so that in case that inevitability were to occur, we could be ready for it.
And of course, that statement is not taking anyone's hesitancy about being in person into account at all. I recognize that. So I don't know how the rest of you feel about being in person together. But that was really more of a statement about getting input on CPDC business.
This might be a good time for me to mention that I asked not to be reappointed to the board when I forgotten Lauren, somebody sent me the request. And I just wanted to tell everybody it was because I am trying to hold down 2 full-time jobs at this point. I have my regular architecture day job, and I have the restaurant at night, which we've reopened and we have no manager for. So I'm
yeah, a lot.
I don't even know how to describe to you what I'm going through.
Oh no.
I feel bad because I was waiting for the day when we could all meet in person, where I could actually meet all of these people I've Zoomed with and actually sit at a table and talk about projects and things like that. But it's not to be, because I just can't go on. So has nothing to do with anybody on the board or anything other than my own personal problems.
Well, thank you for that input. And is weird times, and especially if you're trying to run a business, it's I can't even imagine. So
yeah,
and you can come and attend as a citizen and meet everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point.
Once you get a manager.
I mean, my whole point was, the reason I wanted to do this is, I wanted, because I live in Reading now and have for, I guess it's 2 years now. I just felt it would be a really good way to be involved in what was going on in the community, and I don't know, just be a part of it. And I just had no idea that we would, when the restaurant reopened, that we would be in such dire straits as far as staffing goes. So,
well, hopefully that's short-lived for you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So I think that June 20th was the date that ended my appointment, I think.
Yeah, I guess I would imagine this might be your last meeting then.
No, I think this is my last one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
It's been good.
working
Yeah,
with you all,
thank you.
even though I don't know if I'd recognize any of you on the street, but oh, well.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I felt like I made some sort of contribution to the water tower, but the rest of the things, I felt like I would have really needed to. I mean, even though I could review the plans on my own, I felt like I really needed to have some group contact, I guess, to talk about how I've never been a part of a planning board before,
Yeah.
to understand how all of these things work.
And I will say, Linda, that's exactly I think what you felt is exactly why I think that being back in person is important, because there's certainly more of a dialogue that happens between the board and the applicant in person instead of this crazy Zoom thing. We can get business done, but it's not as interactive as it is in person, or how it used to be when we were doing it in person. So yeah, it's exactly that timing.
Yes, very bad timing.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to email people, and I thought, well, I don't even know how. I guess I could have asked Julie and Andrew. I didn't even know how to get in touch with people, actually.
Well, I hope
Anyway.
things calm down for you real soon.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Julie.
Oh, I'll make one more quick announcement
Okay.
that I just remembered because it's happening on Wednesday, and that's how my life is now. So Wednesday night we have the local rapid recovery planning, which is this grant we got from the state to like work on a plan for like building resilience and recovery for the downtown businesses to kind of emerge from COVID, with some actual actionable, implementable, relatively quick on the ground projects. And so we're having a public forum on Wednesday night at 7 to kind of go over where we are with the first phase, which included a business survey as well as a consumer survey and some initial recommendations that have come out of that process. So that'll be over Zoom, actually. We're allowed to do it over Zoom as long as no quorums of any boards show up. So if you're interested in coming, let me know so I can keep the numbers to 2. And then of course you can always watch us on RCTV to get the update that way.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I see the time is 9:57.
Oh, I love it.
Great if we can close it out before 10 o'clock, right?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Oh, we have a hand raised. Sorry, John, I don't know if we
sure.
should acknowledge Jean, who has her hand raised. I don't know who it is.
Sure. Jean, did you have a comment or a question before we adjourn?
She's muted.
Jean?
Oh. It just got put up, so.
No? Yes? Going once? Going twice? All right. I'm going to have to assume that was an errant hand raise. Oh. Maybe not.
Questions in the chat. Okay, hold on. Oh, not working. Okay.
Can you unmute her, Julie?
It sounds like her mic's not working, but I can try. Let me see. I can only ask her to unmute herself, according to this list of tasks. I'll ask her to type. Oh.
She was just wondering about her email.
This is highly unusual.
Oh, she's at 91 Hopkins Street.
You know, I'll follow up with you tomorrow.
This is something you can take offline.
I
related
believe, yeah.
to something.
Okay.
All right, great. We'll leave it at that then. So I think we voted on adjourning, right?
Yep, and it's exactly 10.
All right, perfect, great. Thank you,
Goodbye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Good night. Thank you,
Thanks,
Linda.
Linda.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.